From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now, here's Hotline editor, John Mercurio.
All right, thanks for joining us. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm Amy Walter. In Florida earlier this week, McCain took aim at his GOP rivals for opposing the immigration bill, accusing them of pandering for votes. McCain turned into attack mode on the very issue he's been fighting the last 2 weeks. John, is this strategy really going to work?
You know, I'm going to go out on a limb here right now, and I'm going to say that McCain may or may not make it to the Iowa caucuses, and I definitely don't think he makes it to the Iowa caucuses as a top-tier candidate. He's not going to be in the top three, especially if Fred Thompson stays in this race. Yep. Look, on issue after issue, Iraq, he still plays, I think, to the Republican base. But I think
except they don't give him credit for it. But
they don't give him credit for it, and they also think that it hurts him in the general election, which in some ways it sort of makes it a double-edged sword for him. And on this issue of immigration, I mean, if Bush, the level of animosity towards Bush right now among conservatives is matched only by the level of animosity that already existed towards McCain on this issue and others. No, I don't think this helps him. I don't see any sort of alternative strategy for him that makes this a winnable campaign for him.
Well, it is literally like, what can you just poke your finger in conservatives' eye on one more thing, right? Like, oh, here, let me just point out again. Here's the real irony. If we had said 2 years ago, you know, what was McCain's problem going to be? Well, he's sort of a maverick, and he's not a team player, and Republican base really wants somebody who's going to be a Bush Republican, and that's the kind of candidate they're going to want to see. Now, the irony today is he's more status quo and more, attached to Bush and Bush's policies than any other candidate out there, which makes him the weekest candidate. Right. Exactly. And so this is what a difference a year makes, a couple of years makes in politics. I'll tell you what. Have you heard that saying?
I have indeed.
Just wait a minute and the convention will changes. But I do agree with you too that no matter what John McCain does right now, I mean seriously, he could come up with a cure for cancer, he could stop world hunger. He is not going to get a break from conservatives. They have already made up their mind about it.
They're locked in. And look, it's June. It's June now. Yep. I think that if you talk to McCain's people at the beginning of this year, I think they said, look, just watch how this whole thing plays out. Watch how we campaign. Look how on fire he is when he's in Iowa, when he's in New Hampshire, when he's campaigning and he's out on the trail. All right, 6 months later, you haven't seen that. In fact, what you've seen is an incredible drop in fundraising, an incredible loss of support around the country.
Although, to be fair, if there's anybody who has been careening the most in terms of this way and not that, right? Careening, I guess, means down, not up, right? Well, you can careen up, maybe. Anyway, if there's anybody whose poll numbers have been suffering the most of late, it is Rudy Giuliani, right? I mean, so while McCain has had a steady decline in his support since 2 years ago when he started polling, it's Giuliani who's had the most precipitous drop. So he too is struggling in that.
But I would say very little of that support is going from Giuliani to McCain.
Of course, it's going to
Romney or to Romney or Thompson. But we'll see if it goes to Thompson, but definitely to Romney. But look, I honestly do think he faces a real challenge to get from here to Iowa, and which I think is really going to be stunning. If we're talking about this in December or January, if he hasn't actually already at that point dropped out of the race because of a terrible showing at the straw poll in Ames in August, I would be shocked, I think, to see him in the top tier. We'll see.
Well, look at that, going out on the proverbial limb.
And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us very much on Hotline TV.